No Direction Home is the informal Soho directors community. Find us at nodirectionhome.com.
So this thing was a dream of a project.
I want to ask you some questions.
Checking in on an old serial number.
That's gonna be tough.
So you know, a mechanism for a director helping everyone steer in the same direction. So Denis was he was incredibly generous with his time. He met with us several occasions, and there were three key terms that were relayed to us. So one being scale, which really comes across in the film, and scale and kind of the scale of the landscape, the scale of the world, really needed to happen because this sense of isolation was really important. You know, everyone just feels insignificant and as though they have no control over the environment that they're living in or what's going on around them. So that humongous scale and in a way kind of taking what had been done with the original film and then moving it on even further. I think the tools available to the filmmakers this time around were that much more advanced that they wanted to make the most of it. Power struggle between, you know, humans and replicants, and corporate power was an incredible identifier throughout the movie. But the most important one, brutality, needed to come through in absolutely everything. It needed to feel like an intense experience. The director really wanted to shake people up and make them take notice. So it comes through in, you know, the brutality of where they were treating replicants, and they're all where they're treating each other, and it's just worn through everything on everyone's faces. They're just surviving this environment, this, you know, this future that they found themselves in. So those were the key themes that all creative departments were very much aware of, and we had to kind of, you know, work within that, and really question how we were going to deliver on that in a very intense, focused way.
But I think that's fantastic because obviously, you know, you might, as a director or someone who's looking to try and brief in a VFX team, think, well, how do I go about that? What language do I use? What's the best way to try and give you guys something to work with to get your teeth into? And obviously, scale and power and brutality, you know, are almost like the kind of the brand pillars of what they're attempting to do. So you have like a sort of you know, a set of tools with which to work, as opposed to saying make it look sexy or make it look cool or make it look futuristic. It's not that.
No, it's not about the surface. And I think these are driving things that feed into the world building, and they also feed into characters and script and story. And so, you know, the story might be developing at the same time that we're working on this. In fact, I don't know if we ever saw a final version of the script. I think there was a final version of the script, but they weren't willing to share the dialogue with us, so we saw only an action version of the script, and had about an hour to read it. So that was, you know, frantic note-taking in a locked room. And where was I going to go? So Denis, you know, had those three things in his mind. He was relaying that to all the teams, and it definitely came through from Dennis Gassner, the production designer. All of the architecture, everything that they were working on had those three themes in mind. Visual effects team, absolutely. And then it became about actually us questioning our tools, because we were seeing concept art like this, and if I got another one like this, which felt as though it was coming from a period of, you know, real analog sensitivity. Even if we're playing it back in 3D, they really wanted they had a sense that the creative tools were going to form a part of the creative process. And so I think they questioned us using digital tools at a very early stage. So we were really interested in the reset on technology. We were really interested in moving away from anything we'd done before. How do we do that? Well, let's look at analog tech. Let's, you know, if between the film that we're about to make and the film that was, there's been a technology reset, hard drives, LCD displays, it's all been wiped out. So there's an utter distrust of electronic technology and this idea of an analog hack in some way. So we looked at bioluminescence and all those sorts of ideas, and just thinking about how we can bring some history back into their technology and some story, some, you know, relate it back to the original films as well.
And but you also mentioned that you noticed or saw the creative team edging away from, for example, doing they were using they were using pens and paper, and also I believe film photography as opposed to digital, in order to try and get that feeling.
Yeah, the whole creative team. I mean, us, Territory Studio. So we started going down the wrong track. We stayed on our digital tools for a little while, and the director wasn't really responding to this or this. It all still felt a little bit too CG. So when we started doing macro photography of fruit and meat, and our fridge in the studio generally looking quite a mess, that's when things started to ring true. So we were using things like cross sections of watermelon for the idea of brain scanning, and that's, you know, just these things started coming through naturally without us trying to consider it too hard, just letting things come through and actually being quite pared back and modest with the design, and just letting the process feed in and let those happy accidents happen. And when that started happening and the director understood our process, that's when there was complete trust. And we were, you know, left to kind of just get it right and make sure we hit those story beats.
No Direction Home is the informal Soho directors community. Find us at nodirectionhome.com.